Okay. So last time we talked about Weaver versus Ward. This time, move the computer. We talked about Weaver versus Ward. That was the musket. Got into a skirmish, dropped on the floor, hit somebody else, said you're liable unless presented the door of exceptions. Then Brown, right? Brown versus Kendall, importing common law into the Americas, into North America. The colonies. Let me be more accurate. Supreme Court of Massachusetts came in, right? Because the facts of the case were two dogs in a fight. Guy comes in, gets a stick, says, "I'm going to stop this fight with this stick." Tries to pick up, whack it, hit somebody else. And then the court reasons that, well, actually, if the action is not truly yours, right, and the plaintiff actually has the burden of proving that you are at fault, then, right, then you could be liable. And so now we carve out these exceptions. Now, for the next case, we're going to take a step further, right? And in the vein of, well, in fault-based approach, or sorry, fault-based approaches, we're going to see, well, here's another exception. And another exception is that, well, if it's unforeseeable and you have no prior reason to suggest that it might happen, right, then you are not liable. And the case to illustrate this point is going to be a case called Cohen versus Petty. This is 1933, keep in mind, right? So we went to 16, all the way to 1933, okay? As Vesta would say, what happened in 1933? And you can fill in the blank with whatever joke. In D.C., Court of Appeals, I believe, the facts of the case are that plaintiff, Cohen, right, was a passenger in a car. And Cohen was in the back seat, worth mentioning. Defendant, Petty, was the driver of the car. And Petty's wife was riding shotgun. Her name is Teresa, and the nickname for her is Tree, which is going to explain this. But while they were driving, defendant, Petty, is feeling a little woozy, okay? And then all of a sudden, he goes, "I feel sick, Tree," Tree being his wife, and then faints. They were driving. And so as you can imagine, when he faints, the car crashes and everybody's injured. I don't know if everybody was injured, but that's not important, okay? We know that Cohen was injured. That's all I am for sure of right now. P. Cohen sues for negligence. Negligence is going to be a whole thing that we're going to talk about later. But the court at the end of it says, well, one, that Cohen, you actually have the burden, so kind of reinforcing this, but you have the burden of proving negligence, okay? And so unless you can get over that hump, we're not going to say negligence here. Two is that, well, he may be negligent, but if it was completely unforeseeable, right? And two, that there's no prior reason to suggest that he's not liable. And the facts of this case actually ruled in favor of Petty. Petty didn't really have reason to believe. He didn't have like a prior history of sickness, right? It's not like that morning of he woke up a little queasy or sick and said, you know what, I'm not 100% today, right? He hasn't done it before, right? And so it wasn't really foreseeable. So now, well, was there prior reason to even suggest that it might happen? And the court actually saw that, well, we don't think it is. Again, like he didn't have a lot of kind of medical conditions. He hasn't done it before. No instances where he has fainted or has reason to believe that he might faint. And so at the end of the day, he was not liable here. And the significance of this is to see that evolution of, well, here's an exception for you. And moving forward, we're going to see more.